Welcome to Nonsense Season 4, Episode 13, our big story. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm CJ Little.
This time we're looking at why borrowing AI is a risky move for most nations. Up next.
So you really think that it's risky for them to borrow AI?
By the way, it's mostly the United States and China that you'd be borrowing AI from, and I wouldn't trust either one of us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Who would you trust? Like, who would be the best? Is like Switzerland? Like, do you need like a neutral?
Oh, I would probably trust Switzerland. Yeah, they have great privacy laws.
Yeah.
Switzerland, Iceland, two great choices.
I would trust the Swedish AI because, like, what other malintent could they have?
Well, they want to steal all your pickled fish.
Please. Feel free. I'll let them right in. Take it all. Good luck. If you can find it, it's yours.
Okay, the new space race. Why nations are treating AI and compute as critical infrastructure. Let's go.
The only pickled fish in my house is what my kids are making under their bed without my knowledge.
I'm not coming over. In 2026, sovereign AI has exploded from a niche policy term into a $100 billion global imperative. The sudden urgency is driven by a realization that AI is no longer just software. It's the 21st century equivalent of the power grid. Nations are no longer content being AI takers. They are racing to be AI makers, to protect their data, their culture, and control of their power, water, and air traffic. At its core, sovereign AI is the radical idea that a nation state should own and control the physical and digital foundations of its artificial intelligence, rather than renting them from a handful of foreign tech giants. To be truly sovereign, a country must control the holy trinity of the AI age: domestic data, local energy grids, and most crucially, the silicon hardware required to run the math.
Well, yeah, it's not going to run on nothing.
We can go in any order you want. You want to talk about the silicon hardware? Because that's going to be impossible to really own. That's all going to be made not in your state. It's unless you are Taiwan or possibly China or possibly the US.
Yeah, that doesn't scale out horizontally at all. Like, at all. It barely, like, we don't.
Yeah.
I think we're kidding ourselves to pretend like we have it in the US. I mean, we have something in the US. We still have Intel fabs here.
Yeah.
We sort of have a budding TSMC fab deployment.
It's tiny.
But something. I mean, it's better than what we had 5 years ago, which was nothing. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But like, if you are really, like, to your point, any other country, like maybe India could do it. Maybe. I don't know.
But they aren't.
But they aren't.
Making chips?
Yeah.
No.
So you're going to have some dependencies elsewhere. That, I guess it's a good place to start of like, how are you going to avoid that? I really don't know.
By the way, a big chunk of why we don't want to make chips in scale in the US is the volume of pollution it causes.
Yeah.
This is really environmentally unfriendly.
But then we're just doing it somewhere else. We're like, oh, we'll pollute those folks. That's okay.
We are. We're polluting Taiwan. That's exactly right.
Well, that's terrible.
It is terrible.
Don't make me feel bad for using my computer.
Sorry.
What a great start here. So we're already down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, you aren't going to have sovereignty over chips.
You can't make the chips.
Local energy grids, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
You need to have tons and tons of power to run AI.
Well, hold on now. You say you're going to have to do that, but so many countries do import their primary energy sources externally.
Who's importing energy all the countries near Germany are importing energy just because they have such a huge excess of solar power.
It appears that between midnight and 9 a.m., Germany is a net importer of power. Between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., they are a net exporter. So midday, that is their solar peak. And they have a massive solar fleet, which apparently reached around, you ready for this? 116 gigawatts.
That's a lot of solar power.
In 2025.
That's a lot of solar power for a country that is always cloudy.
Yeah, I feel like there's some sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, like a Madoff Ponzi thing going on here. This doesn't, I'm no solarologist, but this doesn't make a lot of sense because, like, I don't even think most people in Germany could describe what the sun looks like.
Well, the panels now are so efficient. You just need light. You don't necessarily need direct sunlight.
Yeah, that's super interesting. You would think there would be some alternate ways to do stores, energy stores, but I don't think they do as much of that. I guess it's cheaper for them to export it to other countries to offset whatever coal or gas-fired plants they're using in other places. Does that make sense?
However, the point of all this is you need to be, if you're a country who's going to have AI, you need to have massive power supplies.
Oh, yeah. It's going to drink it all up.
Yeah.
And if you want to be sovereign, you need it from sources that you can depend on, right? That are sovereign to your country, which some countries...
Right. Your neighbor can't shut off your power.
Yeah. So you need hydroelectric. You need something you can pull out of the earth. You need solar in this case of Germany. That makes a lot of sense.
So already we're down to like 3 countries who can do this.
No, I think you've got more energy dependence than 3. You might not get all the pieces of the puzzle for sovereign AI, right? But I think you just want to get...
as many as you can?
Yeah. It's kind of like playing chess. You don't need all the pieces to win.
Let's explain why countries should care about sovereign AI.
Yeah.
Because what if somebody who has a lot of AI in their country suddenly folds their arms and says, okay, Netherlands, we're not giving you any more AI, we're cutting you off. And meanwhile, you're using AI for running all sorts of infrastructure, your water pumps and your sewage system.
No, look, I hear you, but I couldn't imagine imagine any modern superpower acting that childish.
Well, that is the episode then.
I mean, yeah, I think this is the real, especially as of late, where we have made these, I'm using we in a very generalized, not you and I sort of way, where we have made these decisions of like, oh no, we don't like what you're doing, therefore we're not going to give you this thing that you have depended on.
Yeah, sure.
And why would you ever trust us ever again?
Behaving badly.
So I gotta believe a bunch of folks are worried about this, because that if you are powering parts of your infrastructure off this because it's more efficient, it's more cost effective, whatever the reasons are, and then that gets turned off because you've got some grumpy, angry quasi dictator that's saying, oh, we shouldn't do these things anymore until you give me a big gold building with my name on the side of it in Dutch.
Right.
That's problematic.
Dutch.
Like, that's not good.
Now let's go back to the first one, which is a country must control its domestic data.
I would argue that's the most important one.
That's actually something you might want to think about.
For a couple reasons, right? Like, one, your data is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
At scale, that's all the keys to the kingdom. But then also how that data is consumed and processed, and really whether or not it's consumed or processed or weighted or ranked is going to be super important. I do struggle with this one because we've already had we'll call it like a cultural homogenization, generally speaking, over the last, I don't know, 50 years, 100 years, like
more.
We seem to be rolling out into a sort of the same color Play-Doh, right? Like, we were all these different cultures and they all sort of got smashed together. Now imagine you've got an AI that you're asking questions, and if it's loaded or even not just loaded with, but if it prioritizes a given culture or set of cultural answers over another, whoa, that seems like a pretty big nail in the coffin of cultural relevance or like cultural knowledge. If it just gets sort of smashed out.
So you think when I ask my Chinese AI, what should I have for dinner tonight? It's going to say, well, obviously you should go to Fortune Inn and definitely try the chow mein. It's excellent.
No, but I think okay, dinner's a great question. If you ask an AI, what should I have for dinner tonight? A Western AI might say steak and potatoes. An Eastern AI may say dumplings.
Because you're thinking the AI is only training on data that came from the Starbucks in Palo Alto.
Yeah. Then it would just tell you to eat egg bites.
I mean, really? I mean, don't you think it gets its data from all over the world?
It does get its data from all over the world. Drones and routers are great analog for AI in this case, of like meaning you want it to be developed on soil, but they're far simpler. And to your point, we don't even have those things figured out.
Right.
So that's a great, this is where it becomes interesting. Like what do you want to build at home? What do you not want to build at home?
If I were a foreign entity, I would not trust the U.S. to run my power company, to run my sewage company, to run any of the AI systems, to run any important infrastructure. Therefore, if I didn't have my own...
The U.S. government or the U.S. companies as well?
Both, because the U.S. government can control the U.S. companies and cut me off.
Yep.
And so I don't want to make any of those things dependent on U.S. entities. Now, I'm not any more excited about making them dependent on Chinese entities.
Yeah.
So if my AI is not running locally, that's not how I'm going to make my infrastructure work.
But even if it is running locally, I'm not sure that's enough. That's kind of the point of sovereign AI. I'd argue maybe the difference is, like, there's a path here where you build it all yourself, or as many of the components as you can, the silicone, the power, the algorithm, the data. But there's another path where maybe you just take, if you're going to end up on one side or the other, right? One side of controlling forces in the world or the other, why not just use them both? If it's all just APIs, integrate your systems so that you work great with, OpenAI, but you also work great with DeepSeek. Because odds are, if one cans you, the other one's not. Maybe that's the answer.
Also, you can probably get to the truth if you have multiple AIs from multiple countries.
You feed all the answers in.
You're giving them the same query, exactly.
And then take the average.
Then take whatever two of the three are telling you. But you're right. Why not use just multiple AIs and the odds are you won't get cut off by all three?
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe the answer is really you just say all of our systems have to have some sort of redundancy that allow you to eliminate as many of the dependencies as possible. And if you look at the powers, if one were to turn you off, if the US were to turn you off, it is very unlikely that the other superpower playing this game, China, would.
Right.
They'd probably embrace you with open arms. And I think vice versa.
Right.
So maybe that is the answer. Maybe we just cracked the code on this. And it's like, well, you can go it yourself. Yeah, we're making policy here. This is great.
It's a shorter episode than I thought it was going to be.
I mean, you can go it yourself and build these things, which I do think is a viable path. Maybe you're not building the algo. Maybe you're using an open source algorithm.
You're not building the algo. You're not building the chip. You are going to have to generate the power, which is nasty. That's not a pleasurable thing to put on your environment.
Yeah, but you already need power for what they're doing. So if you're talking about a couple % overhead, maybe that's something that you could keep.
It's not a couple %. It's way more than a couple %.
Now, it looks like in the United States specifically, we think that number could get to 9 to 12%.
Wow.
Is that right? I'd love to see how that...
It's a lot of power usage.
European Union, 7 to 10%, China, 4 to 5%, Ireland, 32% by 2026.
Because of their tax structure makes you want to build
That's what I'm assuming.
everything in Ireland.
McKinsey and Goldman Sachs suggested in the U.S. data centers could account for as much as 40% of all net new electricity demand added between now and 2030.
That's new, sure.
That is insane.
But you're building power that you wouldn't have otherwise built, probably, for those data centers.
Projections aren't always destiny. Between 2010 and 2018, data center workloads rose 600%, but energy use stayed almost flat because of massive improvements in server efficiency. So that's Moore's law, right? I mean, if your 2010 to 2018 is 4 to 5 Moore's law cycles, there's your 600%. Easy peasy. So I think it's unclear to know exactly how much load we're going to need going forward. I suspect chip efficiency improvement will outpace software improvement in the next couple of years. I just don't know when, right? At some point, your algo is good enough for the masses.
Right.
And now your chips just keep getting better because Moore's law won't die until the sun supernovas. So like, that's going to go on forever.
So then the smaller countries will be able to run their own AI.
Yeah.
They may not be able to make their own models, but they certainly will be able to run models, yes.
On an Apple Watch. But coming to the core, sort of maybe the path here, just make your core model another plugin in the API. Like use your core model in all cases, but then if you get short on power, you can just use the OpenAI model. Oh, wait, that doesn't work anymore because the US is grumpy at you because you didn't export enough tulip bulbs.
Right.
Now go to the Chinese AI. And if they tell you to screw off, you're done.
No, there'll be more.
Switch to the Chilean AI.
Do you think there's not going to be Japanese AI?
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean, the Japanese are trying to, much like what they do for bluefin tuna, they're trying to hoard as many of these chips as they can so that they can also be a competitor in this.
The problem with hoarding the chips is it's like hoarding milk. It's a great idea, but they're going bad with time.
Sure.
You do not want to keep chips for a very, very long time. I mean, think about all the H100 that was like the chip. Oh man, that was the most advanced chip for AI. And now it's like, no, there's the Blackwell series from NVIDIA that have just blown it away.
Yeah.
All those H100s, you don't want to run those. Those are power hungry and they don't give you nearly as much output.
But that's, I mean, we've had 60 years to prove that theorem over and over and over again, right? I mean, that seems pretty solid. Like, I don't know a lot, but I know that whatever the Blackwell hotness is today is going to be half as good in 18 months.
Because the Rubens will come out and they'll be incredible.
The Rubens?
I mean, that's what they call the 2026 chip, whatever it is.
Oh.
So you don't want to hoard chips. You want to use...
I thought we were breaking for lunch. I was excited for a minute.
You don't want to hoard chips.
No.
You want to just have as many chips as you need today.
I want to hoard Rubens and with chips on the side too. I don't understand. I'm not a huge fan of sauerkraut, but like I'll tolerate it in the Reuben.
AMD has their own chips. They're right on the tail of NVIDIA. Intel.
Are they like the kettle style or the ruffle? What?
I should not use the word chip, should I?
Oh, Rubens really threw me for a loop. Let me say, we should really record this after lunch. This is the answer. You and I, between the two of us, there's almost a complete adult-sized brain.
Almost.
And we have figured out... Almost. This is the answer. You just need redundancy. Your redundancy should be on the things that are going to shut you off. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to have it locally, but you should at least have N+1.
Yeah.
And N+1 can be, your US, pick whatever your US favorite is, OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever your current happiness is, and then pick one that is the antithesis of that, your DeepSeek or some other ByteDance powered interface, and then make your own.
Yeah.
Great. You got 3 to choose from.
All right. So that's the kill switch paranoia.
Yeah.
Have we dealt with cultural homogenization? Because you think if everybody's sharing the same AI, that their cultures are all going to become the same.
I mean,
and I'm saying they train on data more than just the data that they're getting from the Palo Alto Starbucks.
Yeah, but you've got the selection process there of who picked to put that in. Mm-hmm. I feel like you start to bifurcate the problem here. If you're talking about your infrastructure for the power grid, maybe cultural homogenization is less important here. You just need it to make sure it keeps the power on.
Sure.
That's probably rooted in physics more than local culture.
Of course.
Although I guess, hold on. I say that.
Yeah, go ahead.
But also you might want, like if this is the France power infrastructure, you would need your France AI model to know that in the month of August, you're not going to need a lot of power because everyone's in Spain.
Okay.
So that seems like something that you would want to know that's baked into the culture.
But I
can't wait for all the angry French email we're going to get from this, by the way. It's just going to be...
Oh, yeah, but I would think the AI would figure that out after the 1st August.
Well, no. I feel like if it was an American-based AI, it would just shame the European AI people and just tell them they need to work harder.
There is this thing that was going around about the Super Bowl and how the AI figured out that it needed to up the water pressure during the commercial breaks so that people would be able to flush their toilets.
They've been doing this for years.
Yes, this happened long before AI existed.
Yeah. Didn't need AI. No. It didn't need AI.
The manual
that was
operators
ridiculous.
all knew they needed to do this.
Yeah, of course, because they've seen this pattern before in every Super Bowl previous. Yeah, of course.
Right.
I think it's interesting that they don't necessarily know.
Right.
Like for some of the things, like I think in previous years before halftime, like everyone's like, who's watching the halftime show? Everyone's going pee. Like half the people watching the halftime show. I think this year you had a bigger turnout for the halftime show, so you had less of a demand on the infrastructure until after the halftime show.
Probably,
which I think is mildly interesting.
It had been so hyped and made political that it got such an enormous viewership.
I'm more worried about cultural homogenization for the stuff that I would bucket as like generative AI.
Sure.
I do think that stuff could get lost there.
But don't you think that's going to come from private companies largely anyway? So it's going to be wherever the private company is located?
Okay, so maybe the country doesn't need to own it, but I do think there's value in the country like sponsoring. Like we're picking on France here, but to my knowledge, France still has the media laws that require a certain portion of like radio airplay to be.
And Canada
French
does too.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think like if Canada didn't do that, I suspect they would no longer be speaking French in Quebec. They'd probably be speaking Mandarin.
Oh, they'll never not speak French in Quebec.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably true.
You do not know these people if you think that's going to change.
They really enjoy no one knowing what the hell they're saying. Like they do really seem to enjoy that. I also love going to like a hockey game in Montreal and literally half of it is in French and I have no idea what's happening. And I'm like,
oh, sure.
What's that crochet? You're like, oh, that's hooking. Oh, cool. Now I know. But cultural homogenization. So yes. I do think there is some value, like you were saying, like in Canada or in France, where they sponsor or even make laws to regulate some amount of local content that maintains that culture.
Right. Canadian content.
Now, should they own that AI themselves, or should they just endorse it via tax credits or I don't really know the answer to that, but I feel like you want that to still exist. That seems reasonable.
And so 20% of their answers have to be
wrong.
About French culture.
Just wrong.
I mean, how does that work?
Slow, just to come back angered.
In Canada, 20% of the answers have to be polite.
I do think there are very cultural related questions that should probably be encompassed by that AI. Like, for example, if you think about what to eat, if you just said, what should I have for dinner tonight?
Yeah, sure.
Your Western AI, the one from Palo Alto, is probably going to tell you to go have some
Mexican
vegan noodles or something.
Oh, okay.
And then if you ask the one in Montreal, it should tell you poutine because that's all they eat there. And if it's the one in France, it should just tell you like a loaf of bread with some butter. There's something there that would, I think, get lost.
The AI can't ask what's your location and then maybe give you an appropriate recommendation.
But that's the point. It's got to be, that has to be ingested into it, right? That's got to be like included in there.
But don't you think that's already ingested into it? Don't you think all that information is already sucked up into the worst AI?
Well, the problem is Big Vegan wants to stamp out all these other cities' cultures.
This is a huge, huge deal. Because and everyone's talking about sovereign AI and how important it is that every country have their own AI. And I'm going to say this is sort of like the Concorde Fallacy. This is like every country needs to have their own airline.
Yes.
If they don't have a national airline, they're going up in flames tonight.
Okay.
That's never made sense. It never played out to be true.
Let me make my position clear.
Yeah.
I do not believe every nation should have an airline. However, I do think every nation, or at least one, should have the Concorde because I desperately missed that plane and never got to fly on it before they crashed.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're trying.
But I think you're right. I think this is like there was in the 60s and 70s, every country thought they needed their own national airline.
And some countries still have residual airlines to this day from that moment.
I think a lot of them were like, we are sinking. We need to lash ourselves onto other national airlines that are also sinking. And then we can all go down together.
Sure.
Like
exactly.
KLM was Dutch and then they merged with Air France because somehow that was going to keep them more buoyant.
And then they brought in some Chinese money.
And they brought in some Chinese money. Yeah. They were like, how can we keep this place alive? But I think that's an interesting example where you've had consolidation in the airline industry. Yeah. But like if you have passengers, United is probably going to come pick them up. You don't really need...
Oh, for sure, because it makes money.
But I think,
absolutely.
France is an interesting... I know we keep picking on France, but France is interesting to consider because their territory is so wide. You could almost argue that they're at a benefit of operating those airlines at a break even or a loss just to service their territory.
Yeah.
Like how else do you get to French Polynesia?
Let me just back you up here. Yeah. All airlines are operating at break even or loss.
Touché, sir.
The line from Warren Buffett was, savvy investors should have shot Orville and Wilbur down.
That's really funny. Did he actually say that?
Yes, he did.
Oh, that's really funny. I mean, you could charge more. The problem is it's a race to the bottom. It's completely utilitarian.
Completely.
It's completely utilitarian.
There is nothing about it that is not a commodity.
It's funny you call it the Concorde Fallacy because to me, we in the US were the ones trying to catch up on the Concorde Fallacy, right? We were trying to build a supersonic jet around the same time as the Concorde. We let go of those plans.
Yeah.
Really wasn't even the European Union, right? It was really the Brits and the French that had competing plans that then said, oh, we should probably do this together.
Merge them. Sure.
Yeah, which of course made sense. I think the reason that didn't work out well for them is air travel just went a different direction. It turns out you didn't want to go fast. You wanted to go cheap. we assumed supersonic transport was the way to go. It just wasn't. They just bet on the wrong horse. Is AI the wrong horse? I don't think so. I don't know what else you would bet on.
Because there's so many parts of AI that are going to come from other countries anyway. I mean, I'm going to go back to Waymo. There's just no way your nation is going to build your own Waymo.
No, of course.
Unless you're a giant country. That just doesn't make any sense.
But I could see a world where they say, we want to own this fleet. We want to license the tech, and they could license the tech from Waymo because at scale, there's too much risk. And that could make sense because if Waymo's not going to be the only provider in town, right? There's going to be multiples and someone's going to do that deal.
Well, stand by for Rivian. They've started putting LiDAR into their standard vehicles.
Yeah, I mean,
their self-driving is going to get good fast.
Oh, for sure. But like, you've got Amazon playing in this space, right? Like they've been at this for a while. There are other players in this space. My point is, I think someone's going to be willing to do a deal that a sovereign entity can have some modicum of control over.
So your self-driving car is going to be brought to you by AWS.
Most likely.
Yeah.
But like AWS is a great example of this. AWS got pushback from a lot of governments that didn't want stuff stored on US servers. So they said, okay, we'll deploy an arm of the cloud in your geography. It's still AWS, but like for Waymo, for infrastructure management, I could see a world where you can offset not all, but some of the risk. I want to run this on my own chips that I buy from someone else, but at least I have the chip, using my power that I buy from somebody else, but at least I have that relationship, with software that has been handed over to me, maybe source code escrow. Like you could mitigate a lot of these risks with some on-prem solutions like that.
And I like the idea, except for the fact that these are technologies that are evolving so quickly.
So quick.
That the minute you get your chips, the minute you get your power source, the minute you get your software, you're already left in the dust.
Yes and no. I mean, we're thinking about things here that I don't think need the high rate of change. If you're talking about like infrastructure, like if this is your water management, you probably don't need the latest model to do it. If the current model is working, then you could lock at that current model, and it wouldn't be the end of the world if you didn't get the next revision in a month or in 3 months. But it would be much harder to wrestle with if you lost the model you currently have. To me, that's the point.
I couldn't want my water management, even in the US, run on AI any less.
Why not?
And my power management.
Why not?
AI is just not how I want to run any of these things. I want a human making these decisions, because if something happens with the AI, the AI can suggest things and the human at the last minute can say, yes, we'll do that.
Sure.
Yeah, or no, we won't do that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to have any problem from an AI making hallucinogenic choices.
What I think you want is that air gap. You want to presume there's a human.
Yes.
There's a human that says, okay, this guy just told me to launch nuclear weapons at this other country, and we probably shouldn't.
I want that human air gap in a lot of things, though, not just launch of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
I want that in big power choices. You know, we're going to power down this power plant because we have plenty of power at blobbity blue. No, I want a human who actually is going to think about that order before they push that button.
I want to tell you that I agree with you.
Yeah.
However, when I look at the Waymo, it really knocks me off that path.
I know.
Just because you're saying with the Waymo,
it's a smaller number of people and those things are not happening synchronously.
But you are making a broad assumption there that your decision set on one device is only going to affect a small number of people. If the Waymo crashes into a fireball, it at most has only harmed or killed a small number of people.
Sure.
If the AI water system starts putting in extra arsenic, you've killed millions of people. Right?
Yes.
That's bad.
I didn't know that was a lever on the
It's a button.
water
It is a
power
button. They've been
plant.
trying to take it out for years.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it says extra arsenic right on it. No one pushes it.
Wow.
It's got a little piece of tape
Do not
over it.
push.
They put a little tape. Do not push. Danger. Death. More death. No, I understand. I hear you. I do.
Now, back up and just for 1 second and say, what if all the power plants are managed by different AIs? Now, and very granular. So it's just, a few blocks and we're managed by this AI.
Sure.
And a few blocks later, they're managed by a different AI. I'm much more okay with that.
Okay, this could be interesting. Man, we are just solving problems today. I don't know if it still works this way because I've seen war games and I remember what they did with the Whopper. But at least before that, the plan was you had two humans in a silo somewhere and they both had to turn the key.
Yeah.
And in order to launch the missiles.
I'm okay with that.
And the reason you had that was if one dude went cray-cray, he or she couldn't just go launching nukes.
Right.
You needed two people to go cray-cray. I think the odds of two people going cray-cray at the same time
are less.
Are much less. Same with pilots, right? That second pilot is there not just in case the first one has a heart attack, also in case the first one goes crazy. And there was a pilot in Germany, I think, that flew into the side of a mountain, or was it Switzerland? Flew into the side of a mountain because it was the first mate who locked the captain out. Like terrible outcome. Okay, Jeff, that is the answer. So here's what you need. You need your three redundant AIs to all agree on the decision-making process. It's a quorum. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to form a committee, and that committee is just going to take months to make any decisions.
But a month in AI time is a millisecond, so it doesn't really matter.
No, but I'm being facetious. I do think a quorum could be an interesting approach to this. If you had separate black box systems that you fed all the inputs into and they reach a quorum, it seems less likely, because if you wanted to attack the system, you'd have to attack all three as opposed to just one. And that does seem to give, N+2 would get you probably 3 orders of magnitude more security.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about the chips.
Yes.
We've talked about the algorithms. We've talked about the data, right? You talked about it doesn't even make sense to do. I think there's another component that I'm in some ways more concerned about than these. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
And that is the humans, like the people that go into this. And I do wonder where they should sit from a sovereign perspective.
The people who create the AI, the brains. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I'd argue from the edge of the frontier models, like creating the things, at some point that's going to become less important to infrastructure management because you're not going to need the latest and greatest AI, but you still need to know how it works.
Yeah.
As you get down the spectrum of deployment engineer and DevOps or I don't want to call it IT, but like IT plus sort of roles.
Sure.
If you don't have those, well, how do you manage?
I don't want to be exporting all of my best brains, my best computer brains to Djibouti because they create a huge tax base and they decide they're going to raise tons of money and they're going to put more money in AI than anybody else. And suddenly all my brain goes to Djibouti. I don't want to do that for sure.
I mean, you're talking about export. I would argue even more. I don't want to not be able to import. I want to be able to import as many of those brains as possible. But now that's real sovereign competition there, right? Who else is going to want to get these folks in? It probably doesn't make the world a net better place. My hunch is if you had more people focused on building the same thing together, not in one place, but in 3 places, that's probably better than in 27 places.
Sure.
I would think.
Sure.
You still want competition.
Does it make the world a better place if we all are sort of locking arms and are interdependent on each other's stuff?
Oh, for sure.
I think it actually forces us to get along better because
for sure,
if we all are sharing the same information,
that is the
answer isn't to be more independent. The answer is to be more codependent.
I agree with you on this. That to me is the best optimistic path forward.
Yeah.
What is best for humanity is for us to be as efficient as possible and remove as much duplicity as possible. I'm 100% with you.
The idea that we should do what is best for the U.S. is a horrible idea.
But that's where power kills this whole thing, is people get a little taste of power and they immediately try to start flexing across this. And instead of it being everyone's better off, it's just me. And I do think that is more the world that we are in now. And we get wrapped up in the, just like you said, right? Like America first, as opposed to, well, we've done pretty well benefiting off a global locking of arms. Maybe we should go back to that.
Few species have been more successful than dogs, who do not live by survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
They live by survival of the friendliest.
Yeah, sure.
And that works.
Yeah, I mean, the dog that snaps at other dogs, that one doesn't last very long. Nobody invites him to parties.
You always do have a few crazies. But the mass collection of dogs, the pack, they know which ones are the friendly ones. They know how to be friendly with everybody, and everybody helps everybody else.
That's why they listen to our show.
The survival of the friendliest is a vastly superior survival strategy to survival of the fittest.
Yeah, I mean, be nice. Weird how that works.
Strange. All right, we're out of time. We have to get out of here. But quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
The majority of my reading currently is books to and from my children.
Okay.
So I don't want to bore anybody with those, although they are really, really fun.
There's some excellent children's books in 2026.
There are some really great kids books out there. But no, instead I want to suggest something that I have seen.
Yes.
And this is sort of following with the pattern of my last recommendations that were around makers and builders.
Yeah.
If you have not fallen down the Wintergatan rabbit hole yet, your YouTube feed is definitely missing out.
Sure.
This is Martin Molin. He created a viral masterpiece. It's this amazing, gigantic, 8-foot tall, hand cranked, all wooden machine that uses something like 2,000 steel marbles to play this incredible, I think they call it folktronica music.
Sure.
And like the tune I actually love. I think it's great, but it looks like this thing out of steampunk. It shouldn't work. You just look at it, you're like, there's no way this thing should operate.
Sure.
The device itself is incredible, but the real magic is in his sort of journey and where he's taking it now. He's documented the whole sort of grueling, brilliant, and often hilarious process of trying to engineer mechanical perfection. He's now going for his next version, which is even more insane. I mean, we're talking about 3D printing and trying to come up with like the best 3D printed silicone to make the bounce of the ball.
Sure.
Like, it's really nuts. And his attention to detail is incredible. I don't know if this is ever going to end with the building of the next machine. It does seem like it just keeps getting farther and farther out, but it's hands down the most satisfying engineering saga on the internet that I found so far.
It's an interesting mad scientist combined with he's an excellent musician.
Yes.
He's actually playing this thing as if it's an instrument.
And it is the most complex yet simplistic instrument you've ever seen. It has like all these levers. It's all mechanical. There's nothing in here that is electronic. There are no gates. There are no servos. Everything is all mechanical using gravity and a hand crank. And you get to solve problems like keeping tempo and how it winds down and how you open up different gates. And it's really fascinating. It's one of those things I assume everyone has seen because I think the first major video on this was like 9 or 10 years ago, but many folks haven't. And I do suggest it. I'll definitely put a link in the show notes for folks to follow. It's really cool.
All Steelies except one black marble.
It's like the one to chase. It's like so you can see some movement through the whole like timeline of the machine.
I guess, yeah.
And there's just one that you sort of chase through. If you liked the video I posted a couple weeks ago about the marble clock, which is also very cool, I feel like it is the distant cousin or maybe child of this project. It's really neat.
Very cool.
I'll post a link in the show notes for you guys. How about you? What have you seen?
Marina Zenovich's new documentary, I'm Chevy Chase and You're Not, is a bold, warts and all look at a comedy legend. It tracks Chevy Chase's massive rise from the original star of SNL to 80s movie royalty, while facing his reputation as one of Hollywood's most difficult personalities. The film digs deep into a painful childhood to explain the biting defensive wit that became his trademark. Yes, family and friends like Dan Aykroyd come on camera, but the movie does not look away from the bridges Chase burned, including his messy exit from the TV show Community. At 82, he remains as blunt as ever, even telling the director she isn't bright enough to figure him out. Marina's incredibly bright. It's a fascinating, sometimes sad portrait of a complex genius who couldn't always get out of his own way. It's not good, it's great. I'm Chevy Chase and You're Not, available now on HBO Max.
I absolutely will watch this. This sounds incredible.
He is much more of a complex person than I think most people give him credit for. He is both a horror on the set of various TV shows and things he has done, and at the same time, he is the most beloved, delightful family man. There's so many layers to Chevy Chase that this doc reveals. It's fantastic.
I have to watch this.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all of this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. This on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm CJ Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, My Favorite Overcast, or wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense Studios are guarded by Barkley the dog. Barkley's a rescue mutt, free and open source. Next time you're tempted to buy an inbred dog or purebred dog, don't. Get a Barkley. You'll be so glad you did.
We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Please join us.
What do you want AI to do for you next?
Allow me to sleep.
How would it do that?
I don't know. Lock the door to my kids' rooms. Actually, come to think of it, I don't need an AI. I mean, it's just duct tape.
Okay, nice.
Watch this. Rip, tear, apply.
And done. Night, boys.
Good night.